The bikes go by, I call them crotch rockets. You should see how well they can stand on the handlebars and go 120 miles an hour.
Okay. Do we have a form to limit the time?
What's that?
Do we have a form to limit the time?
Here's my phone.
Yeah. Oh, you want a timer?
No, just a one miss anything. We should have announced it.
Oh, I would just, yeah. If you want a timer, I can get.
Welcome to the Monday, February 21st meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission. First item on the agenda is roll call. Members Timothy Gilbert, present. Sid Bremer, just absent. Alder Veronica Corpus Dax.
Present.
Commissioner Lisa Hanson.
Present.
Commissioner Jacob Miller, absent.
He is excused.
Excused. Rhonda Petrowski.
Present.
And Jerry Wisniewski.
Present.
Thank you. Second item, approval of the agenda for the February 25th, 2019 meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, a second by Alder Veronica Corpus Dax to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is, the agenda is approved. Next item, approval of the minutes from the February 11th, 2019 meeting of the Grand Bay Planning Commission.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wisniewski, a second by by Alder Veronica Corpus Dax to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Before we get started on regular business, because of the crowd we have tonight, and in order to more efficiently use our time, the commission is going to establish some guidelines. Once the commission opens the floor for public speaking, we will have the people, one by one, come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and the speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak, and you will be allowed to speak once, other than the petitioner. The petitioner may be asked to speak more if there's any questions on his behalf. So hopefully this will facilitate a more efficient use of our time when everyone has a chance to speak. So having said that, regular business, item 1. Consideration with possible action on the request to authorize a conditional use permit for a shelter facility in an office residential district located at 1030 South Clay Street, submitted by Pastor Manuelis Rico, Transformation House Incorporated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This request was before the Planning Commission at our last meeting, and was sent to the City Council last Monday on the 18th, and was referred back on behalf of Alderman Galvin, and he had a few points he wanted addressed, I guess, in front of the Planning Commission. I've highlighted those on the screen and also within your agenda. There are 5 of them. Relating to police calls was the first question or concern. Number 2 is the amount of parking on site, if there's sufficient parking for the use. 3 is more of an operations issue about the background checks that are performed on site, maybe more detail that could be provided regarding those. Item 4 has to do with the lack of potential landscape and outdoor lighting. And the 5th one was security cameras being kept on site to monitor outside activity. Staff doesn't have any direct response to these necessarily. Alderman Galvin is here tonight, and maybe he can speak to those more directly, as those were his points. At this point, we are reaffirming our recommendation from the last Planning Commission meeting, and take it from there.
Thank you. Is there any discussion amongst the commission?
Motion to open the floor? Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, a second by Alder Corpus Dax to open the floor. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this matter? Alderman Gavin.
Thank you.
I appreciate this commission indulging me for a second go-around. It's just, this has come up suddenly, and a lot of the neighbors and stuff have had input back and forth, and I've had people contacting me after the city council meeting even with what they felt were things that should be considered by this commission in granting the cup. I met again today with Pastor Rico. I've met with him 2 other times, once with city staff and once again by ourselves. He has a program to try and take men within our community and help them get back on their feet and become productive members of our society, and no one can fault that. Certainly, though, no one can fault residents being concerned. There's been issues with the other homeless shelter in that area with some people from that causing problems in the neighborhoods. And certainly I don't think that should reflect on what Pastor Rico has done in the past, but people tend to tie one with the other, whether it's right or wrong, but they tend to. And so they've voiced their concerns. And over that period of time, I've received 12 phone calls and 17 emails from different residents. And out of that, 2 were in favor of what Pastor Rico is proposing, and the rest were either had serious reservations or they were against it. In addition, I was contacted by staff from St. Paul's School and then staff from the church, and they also have serious reservations about the granting of the cup. Some people I've had to explain to them, it doesn't matter where Pastor Rico gets his money. And unless you can prove that the value of the property has gone down, again, that can't be considered by the city. The city has legal parameters that they must operate in, and trying to get people to understand that. Sometimes they hear it, but they're not buying into it necessarily. So anyway, in meeting with the pastor today, we talked over several issues, and I think we have something of an understanding of what he's trying to achieve and how he's trying to achieve it. But for me, landscape and lighting on the exterior of the building. With good landscaping and good lighting, it reduces the ability for people to be doing things around that property that would be concealed from the street or from staff within the building. We have had other issues at other shelters where residents have hidden contraband, illegal substances in and around the building. They go in, it's outside, they get searched, they've got nothing on them, then they go back out and access it. And so I feel with good lighting and good landscaping, not only does it make the property look appealing to everybody in the neighborhood, but also it prevents that kind of behavior from taking place. The other thing I talked to him about, and he does have some video recording, or at least video cameras there. I don't know if it's recorded this time. He's told me he has recorded in the past. But I'm asking for video recording of all the entrances and the property to the building. Part of that is it allows him and his staff to monitor who's coming and going. It allows us that if it's recorded, that if someone makes a complaint against Transformation House, that video can easily be accessed and proven that nothing took place, or if something did take place that staff was unaware of, they can address it immediately. Although Pastor Rico has said he does record it, he was not, my feeling was he was not willing to place it in the cup or with it as an operation plan, that it would be recorded, it would be accessible to police. Apparently, at his last facility, there was an issue with a missing hard drive. And I gave him some advice how to handle that if something like that were to happen again. And I would also state that as part of that cup or that operating policy, that if he does have recording and police are allowed to view it, that he make the police follow the law when it comes to accessing and gaining copies of those recordings. It's his right, and he's protecting not only himself and his staff, but his clients by making them follow the law when it comes to that. What else were we here? I was contacted by the attorney that represents the owners of the, what used to be called, I'm not sure if they're called this anymore, the St. Mary's Poolside Apartments. And there is some dispute about property between the two entities, and it relates to parking. My concern is, one, I want that resolved before we grant the cup. I don't want to have something that turns into a legal issue going to the courts, and then it turns out something he thought he had is no longer his, and it renders the cup no good. Now he's got to close down or change something. The other thing that leads into is, does he have enough parking for his clients? I mean, basically, he could have upwards of 46 individuals. They are required to be working. Some, I'm sure, will be using public transit, but others may have their own vehicles. Does he have enough parking for staff and the clients to be legally parking in that area? I would like to know if he has any licensed staff. We checked with the other shelters in this area, and they all have licensed staff as it goes towards counseling for AODA, housing, social work, and these things. And from what Pastor Rico has in his operating plan, this is a large part of what he plans on doing with these men to help them get back on their feet. And then finally, before we grant the cup, I would want the building inspected entirely, inside and out, by Green Bay inspectors. And if he's going to be operating the kitchen and that there, that the Brown County Health Department also sign off on his operation there. There's also the AODA Association here in town and the Brown County Housing Coalition. He said he's a member, but when we check with him, they've never heard from him yet. So, to make best practices, it would be best for, I think, his organization to be working with these organizations like the other shelters do. They can share information, find out about people that might be scamming the system or in more need of more intensive help. I did look at the calls for service because some neighbors were concerned. There were 140 calls for service at his old establishment in a 6-year period. And looking through those calls, a few weren't even related to his address, what he was doing. And out of the rest, maybe 3, 4, 5, I thought maybe could have been handled differently by staff. But for the most part, they were the type of calls you find in almost any kind of apartment complex or any of the other shelters, for instance, St. John's or NEW. And the volume of calls in relation to the amount of people that he had at his facility were nowhere out of range with the other ones. So I'm not concerned at all about the police calls for service. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. I can write this out for you and get more detailed information for your consideration, but some of this I think needs to be addressed before, and I think some of it needs to be included in the cup. Thank you.
No?
No, it's not for Bill so much as, I guess, staff as far as the property dispute.
As far as parking, you mean?
Well, no, as far as the property, there's obviously a property line dispute at this point, and
I don't know if there's a dispute, there's some unusual circumstances with parking and lot lines. That's something that would be addressed as part of the site plan review, that would go on with our staff, but I'm not sure anything's being disputed at this point.
They would have to show in accordance with, right, being able to provide sufficient parking spaces. They'd have to show on-site, that they can park them on-site on the property that they do have, or there are agreements with adjacent property owners, easements or some other type, to show that they're available for those use. If they can't produce those, then we can't sign off, because if they don't, if there's not an agreement, then technically they cannot be included as saying that they are part of what they've proposed.
And there aren't, for a type of CUP like this, there's no parking requirements like with apartments, 2 spots per, I mean, this is a different situation. There isn't anything on the books regarding this.
There's not a nice, neat, easy answer like apartments, right? So we kind of treat this use as a dormitory in our parking code, so the zoning administrator has some leeway to require a parking study or analysis. So we would ask Transformation House provide some sort of documentation about their guests and do they have vehicles, what's their past history been, and use some sort of methodology to kind of gauge what goes on with their clients and associate some sort of parking number. I estimate maybe 21 parking spots possibly total for the site.
Okay. And do we know the number of staff that will need parking spots?
We don't know that, but that'd be part of the analysis, and we would ask them to make a proposal to us to review.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Go ahead. You, sir.
Phil Peterson, 5602 Maribel Road, Denmark, Wisconsin. Members of the Green Bay Planning Commission, I'm Phil Peterson, Vice Chairman of St. Paul Lutheran Church, located at the corner of Chicago and Clay Street. As part of our ministry, we operate a 3K through 8th grade parochial school. Total attendance is just over 100. Of note, our registration for next year's 3 and 4K classes already have 30 children. This is the most we have ever had this early in the registration process. As a church, we are concerned for the physical and spiritual welfare of the men who would be served by the proposed Transformation House. As parents and school administrators, we are concerned for the health and welfare of our students. We do not have the answer as how to both of those concerns should be met. We have no plans to take a formal position for or against the Transformation House. We are thankful that city leaders are showing such due diligence in studying and discussing the situation. Moving forward, we would encourage a complete assessment of the actual Santa Maria facility by the city building inspector for the proposed usage. This would be for the safety of the participants as well as for the long-term operation of the program, if it is approved. That building is old, just as our building is. We have had to deal with the stresses that deferred maintenance and unforeseen building failures can put on a nonprofit. St. Paul values our location and neighborhood and are committed to it. In recent years, we have remodeled our main worship area and the gathering room in the basement. We have also remodeled rooms to enhance our existing child care program and introduced a 3K program. Our members care deeply about our community and trust that our city officials will make the right decision about what's best for our neighborhood and our city. We look forward to continuing to serve our neighbors and the people of Green Bay. Any questions from anybody?
Thank you. Anybody else would like? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Mrs. Eileen Fry. I live at 425 South Clay Street, which is directly across the street from the proposed Transformation House. I have many questions that have not been answered. I've asked them 5 times for replies to the questions that I have. I've received nothing back. As far as I understand, the property across from my home is not the only thing that Transformation House has acquired. They've acquired also the 3 homes that go along with those, with that plat that the Mrs. Desatel had owned before selling. That includes Mrs. Desatel's home. I am aware that there is a possible dispute with the parking and the egress to the rear of the building. That is actual, I don't know, the lawyer's gonna have to come and discuss that. But it's not fitting in there properly. I'm trying to understand how Transformation House works. We have Transformation House Holdings that owns the 610 building on Broadway, where the construction company is that he owns and runs, where the Faith Tabernacle resides and operates. And we just learned from a newspaper article recently that the Brown County Health and Human, I don't know the full title of that, has been renting from them. And I understand that the Broadway address has applied for a cup, was denied. I do not know where. I couldn't go much further than what I found. So I'm trying to follow where this has gone. They've gone from Jefferson Street to another address on Jefferson. I don't know why they left the Jefferson Street address. He told us at the meeting that the owner wasn't doing repairs. That's all I know. There are some issues of food stamp fraud that I found. I do not know how that ended or what happened with that. That's a concern to me. Just trying to find out how it is that they are able to purchase over $1,100,000 and some $1,000 worth of property across from my home.
Excuse me, ma'am, you have 3 minutes.
I'm sorry?
You have 3 minutes left. I thank you very much for your... Did anybody have any questions
Well,
for her? No? Thank you. Is anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Larry Fry. I live at 425 South Clay Street. My concern primarily is that of the 5 parcels that were purchased by Transformation House, 3 of them were not included on the cut permit. And, you know, there are no verbal assurances, no written assurances that that would not be eventually rolled into the mission of Transformation House. So I would request that the committee also include those 3 residential properties that they own on within the permit, within the scope of the permit. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I guess if you want, and correct me if I'm wrong here, as far as just some questions about the 3 houses. So the property owner did purchase a number of properties in this area. As far as the 3 houses are concerned, those are single-family houses intended for occupation by either a single family or single household unit. So like any other single-family unit in the city, the property owner could rent those out to a single family or a household without having to do anything special, right? I mean, you don't have to come before us to rent out your house, you know, in a standard lease.
It's a rental property.
It's a rental property. However, if the property owner intends to house non-relatives together, I guess non-family members together, the individual would have to come back and ask to have that either added into the CUP, because it's now a different type of use in terms of a rooming house or boarding house, where you're putting unrelated individuals in there. That was not the intent the first time, so that's why it's not included in there. So just, if you do add it into the CUP, you're also then kind of expanding the use from beyond that building into those homes. So right now it would be prohibited, but if you do that, I mean, you're allowing that use to take place there. With that, if you do also do that, there's a higher level of building code that those houses would have to meet, you know, if they're used as a rooming house. Right now, they just meet the standard single-family housing code, but if they're used in more transitional nature, it would kick it up a notch in terms of the building code requirements. But just, it was not included, it was not applied for as part of this CUP. We weren't recommending putting it into the CUP to kind of limit, I think, the uses to a single-family rental. So that's why it's not there at this point, but just if you do decide to add it, that's kind of what you're opening up to.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that answers a few questions. Okay, anybody else would like to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm Michael Pickard. I live at 429 South Clay, directly across the street from the Santa Maria Nursing Home. And I'm worried about the property values within this area. And because this neighborhood in the last 10 years has improved greatly. There used to be a number of drug houses that have been torn down and rebuilt with Habitat for Humanity. The apartment across that are on Webster and Crook Street used to have major problems, and they have all been cleared up for the most part. The number of police calls there and the number of disturbances in the neighborhood have really gone down. I'm not sure what this is gonna do. I like what he's doing. I like his corporate plan or whatever you call it. I just don't believe it belongs in a residential neighborhood. Now, my house is 100 years old. It turned 100 years old. Well, it will turn 100 years old in April. And I've applied for a VA home improvement loan to redo the wiring, redo the soffits, paint, all sorts of things like that, which are necessary as houses get older. And I'm concerned as to whether or not that's going to be worth my while to do this. If the property value drops, I can see that being, you know, a major money loss for me to put all this money into this. And another thing along with the parking, there's 2-hour parking on the east side of Clay Street. There's all-day parking on the north side of Clay Street. I would like to see that one side or the other is no parking, or if there's parking on both sides, I would like to see both sides be a 2-hour parking. That block on Clay Street is the only block in the neighborhood that I'm aware of that does not have time limits or no parking limits enforced. So, you know, those are my basic concerns, because apparently from what I'm hearing, their parking lot is owned by or their north side parking lot is owned by the apartment home. So that's going to remove, if that is indeed true, that's going to remove a lot of parking places for these, and where are these people going to go? So those are basically my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is William Daniels. I reside at 515 Sunny Vista Court in Seymour. The reason I'm here is I am a former resident of Transformation House when they were on Jefferson. I don't know what I can tell you. The program helps a lot of men that otherwise just get left behind. They wander around the streets, you see them in the parks, and everybody gets upset, oh, we need to do something about it, and when someone comes along like Pastor Rico and trying to do something about it, he's got 42 hurdles to jump and everything else, which is fine. You guys have regulations, I understand that. Regulations are a good thing, but regulations can also kill a good thing. I was there for a little over a year. I got a job while I was there. I saved money. I now own a home in Seymour with my fiance. I got a car when I was there because I did not have a car. I was walking from Jefferson 3 miles every day to Pioneer Metal and back, working second shift. And then with the help of Pastor Rico, I got a car from Dorsch Ford credit system they have. It helped me out a lot. I don't have a drinking problem, I never have. I just stopped drinking on my own. I don't have a drug problem, I never have. But those options are there to help the individuals that do have those problems there. In the year I was there, I think I saw 3 squad cars the whole time. And 2 of them were there because of somebody parked in the parking lot that wasn't a resident there. Other than that, minimal police contact. The residents, when I was there, they random drug tested. You had to breathalyze when you went into the building. You had to be in the building unless you were at work. You had to be in the building by a certain time. And you had to be in your room by a certain time. So it's not like, they're gonna go in and, as somebody was mentioning, hiding contraband outside, and they're gonna go inside and blow in and everything else, because once you breathalyze in, you're not allowed back outside. So if you have something hidden out there, it's gonna be there till tomorrow, because you ain't getting it in the building. I can't speak to how they operate now. I haven't been there in a while. But I'm pretty sure I can't see them changing any of those processes. I can't see, I mean, I can understand that people that live in the area are worried about it and worried about the activity, but from my experience, and not at this location, obviously, the activity was minimal and well controlled by the staff.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Congratulations on your accomplishments.
Oh, thank you very much.
Very admirable.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service, sir. My name is Vincent Washington. I'm also a disabled veteran. When I was in the military, I had some problems. And I understand what the residents saying about the homeless, the drug problem, the ex-convicts, because I was one. When I came out of the military, I had some issues. I turned to drugs. I committed a crime, went to prison. I became homeless. But I went from state to state, city to city. I ended up in Green Bay. I met Pastor Rico and Minister CJ. And the VA was great help to me. Like I told you, I'm a disabled veteran. They was great help to me. But I was so thankful that I was able to find a place where I could get some help at. You know, I'm sure everybody in this room got somebody who been to the military, who done had some law problem, who done got on drugs. But you might not, but I'm pretty sure somebody in your family, you know, families are big, don't have some kind of problems. But all I'm saying is, I know it's kind of scary situation you're putting yourself into. But I'm saying, me, okay, I've been living in my apartment for 3 years now. I done got married. I pay my bills. My landlord I've never been late on my bills. I got a relationship with my kids. Let me tell you, my addiction started back when I was in the military. And I was lost for a long time. But I'm thankful for these places. There was opportunity. I'm saying, like, if you don't have no family, I'm saying, like, if your family member needs some help, that maybe it's a place like this that could reach out to them. I mean, there's places all around the world, but it might be one in this neighborhood that might reach out to them. You know, I understand where y'all come from, but I'm saying, reach in your heart. No, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna be quiet. You know, they say a lot of things go on in this world. But they said, no, I'm not trying to get religious. They said, if my people was to pray, he said, God said, I will heal the land. I will stop all this. And until I surrender, until I truly surrender, that's when I got the help I need. Okay, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Yes.
My name is Deneen Van Hecker, and I live at 400 North Monroe, apartment 115 here in Green Bay. I understand how scared you guys are. I really do. And I understand how concerned everybody is about property values. But there have been studies done that show when you have a house like the Transformation House, a program, that there's no more crime increase than you would have in a supermarket. There are also studies that show that property values don't go down. They actually stay the same or they rise. And I know that it is scary but give them a chance. Because I've seen the good they do. And I know Pastor Rico. I've met the gentlemen who stay at the Transformation House. They are very, very strict with them and teach them what they never learned and need to know to exist on the outside and be successful. And if they don't do what they're supposed to, they're asked to leave. They are not allowed to destroy everything that Pastor Rico has worked for and everything that these fine men have worked for. The ones that I have dealt with when I worked at the food pantry there, they would come down, they would get the food that they could use in their circumstance. Granted, they didn't have a kitchen to cook in, but they could take and use a microwave. So they were allowed some food and snacks. They were always, always, always respectful and helpful. They would come down and they would take the boxes. Or if there was something heavy, they'd say, "Don't you carry it, ma'am. I'll carry it. Let me do that for you. Let me take this out to the garbage." So while it's scary, it's a good program. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
I just want to give you those recommendations.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry, Chucky's here.
Thank you. Sir, Pastor Rico?
Pastor Rico, Director of the Transformation House. The Transformation House is not like St. John's. I want to say this again. It's for men who really, truly ready to change their life around. We have men, I started taking the pictures of all the guys that we have, and got reconnected with their children. You know, the children, they need their fathers. You know, we have pictures of guys who went on and got their GED, went to college. We work on the inner person. That may shine on the outside. We talk about transformation inside and out. Homeless shelter in the area, a lot of riffraff, this and that. We don't do that. When the guys come to us, there's a thorough screening to get into the program. Anybody can't get in. I turned down a lot of folks at the door. If they're not ready, they cannot get in. St. John, 436 Jefferson, there was a park right across the street. There was a school right across the street. We never had any type of problems like that, you know, and now we all for working with the neighborhoods. We do the outreach, feed the homeless barbecue every year. It's a big event. We feed about 500 people. Don't make a difference. They can be just in the neighborhood. You don't even have to be homeless. So, you know, I understand your concern, but we want to help. We did our report over our last location. We looked at the crime rate in that area. Then, that was before we got there. Once we got into the Transformation House on 436 South Jefferson, that area, it went down. Then when we left, it went back up. You know, it's all about, see, we gotta work with our guys to try to get them back out there where they need. We show them love. You know, we encourage them. You know, that's what it's all about. You know, a clean, healthy place that would not only help them to get to where they need to get to, but help them spiritually. We have pastors coming to the facility doing Bible studies. We got churches supporting the Transformation House. We've been, I don't know where they got that from, although maybe because we haven't been there in several months. But we was a faithful member of the Brown County Housing and Homeless Coalition, and the Brown County Food Network.
Sir,
Yes.
your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple follow-up, Pastor. The Alderman's, one of his concerns, Alderman Galvin's concerns was about the cameras. And I know you spoke last time that you have, I think, 27 cameras that you are looking at installing. Will any of those be outside facing?
We will have cameras on every area of that. I have to find out and see what's going on the outside as well as the inside.
But at this time, your plan is to have cameras on both outside and inside?
Outside and inside.
Okay.
All around the building.
Are these recording cameras or are these?
Yes, yes.
Yes, Commissioner Westbrook.
Knowing, or have you had a chance to actually look at the items that Alderman Galvin has brought forth for this committee, to see if you see any real hardships on your operation or anything, or almost everything that you told us last time, you sounded really good, and your heart's really in it, like, I could just feel it. And I wouldn't imagine that there's any of these items on that list there that would probably really bother you, but I would hold you responsible to study that and see if you can help make those go away.
We have not really done close this down.
Okay.
And as far as lighting around the building, we have the cameras are being installed right now. As far as we always walk the grounds, we always make sure the outside is clean and neat. We do landscaping. We make sure that part is going to be looking real nice. We keep up the building. As a matter of fact, the building is in real good shape. Our architect went through the building already. One of the best architects in Green Bay. So we done already had everything checked out.
Okay. These two gentlemen that came to speak tonight back up everything that you have really spoken about and back up your word, and I think that's been great people to come forth, and God bless both you guys for
Thank you.
surviving and showing that this thing works. I think it's great. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
Typically, how many staff, approximately would need parking on site?
Probably 4, something like that.
And typically, how many of your residents have vehicles of their own that would also need parking?
Normally around, on Jefferson, we had 30 beds. And we normally have around about 8, 9 cars, somewhere around there. And we make it difficult because anybody with a vehicle, they have to have valid driver's license. They have to have insurance. The car had to be registered to them. There's no borrowed cars. Everything has to be updated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken yet? Thank you. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Brianna Rattler. My address is 1120 Marshall Avenue, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I've been in Green Bay since 2007. I have a business in town here. I am a member of Faith Tabernacle. I'm on the board of Transformation House. I just want to say that homelessness is a big issue all around. And men are the hierarchy, or they're the focus of the family. And so if we have no stable men, then we have no stable family. No stable family, no stable children, and so forth, right? No community. I just want to say that right now, our state have put out proposals for grants for homelessness, because it's such a big issue. And so, like Pastor Rico said, we are unlike St. John's or New Community Shelter, because we have all these stipulations for men, because Pastor Rico himself put a lot of emphasis on a man actually being a man, and so that comes with a lot of good choices and a good stable foundation. But my point of coming up here is to say that we are open for volunteers. If the board is granted that we are able to open up and work, we are more than welcome to have anyone come in and volunteer in whatever capacity you have. Even on our board, if there are people from the school, the churches around, that we are looking for people that will be able to come help us be better as an organization. So, how much time I have left? Let me see what I can say.
About 45 seconds.
That's it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
Motion to return to normal business?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Waschinsky, a second by Commissioner Petrowski to return to regular order of business. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are back. Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
So, touching back on the concerns that Alderman Galvin had, can we stipulate in the CUP things like landscape, cameras, and licensed staff?
Yes. And maybe just, can you indulge me for
Absolutely.
a minute? I just want to step back because I think it's also important to discuss for some of the neighbors here too, just kind of where we're at in the process. And just to take us back a little bit, a few months, May of 2018, I had to pull up the date. I remember Planner Buck came here and talked about Act 67 and changes that it made to state statute and the law, and how we had to amend some of our ordinances when it came to CUPs to comply with that. So, I mean, long story short, basically prior to that act in 2017, for a CUP, a conditional use permit, the burden of proof was on the applicant. You had to come to us and say, all right, why should I be able to have this special particular use in this district, right? It's not just like a by right use like, for most residential uses, but there's some things that, could be special about it. So, all right, I'm going to prove to you, Plan Commission, why I can have this use, and that's why I call it a conditional. What Act 67 did is it basically reversed that, and it put the burden of proof on the city. And basically, it almost made these CUPs a by right use unless the city could prove through evidence that this would not be good for the neighborhood. So again, prior to that, it was easier for us to say, look, the neighbors, this doesn't fit in with the neighborhood characteristics, there was just a lot of opposition to it, and it made it a lot easier for us to say, nope, you're right, you know what, this doesn't fit, we can't do this. with that change, we're kind of playing defense from the start. And so I think when we talk about adding conditions, it was also very specific about you can add conditions so long as they're related to the use, they target the type of land use, and they're specific, they're reasonable, and they're measurable. And so I think it's important to talk about things that we put on there that we can actually measure and have some say in terms of, all right, are they really doing that? So I think, can you put up the list of conditions that were on there? So I think, what Alder Galvin brought up, and I discussed it a little bit with him at the end of the day today. I think in terms of providing additional conditions, a review of the structure, by our inspectors or chief building official, we required the applicant, before they came to us, to really kind of go through and get an architect to look, can you use this building for what you want it to do in it? Previous facilities like the Light Store 610 South Jefferson, it's an old department store. So, right, converting that from an apartment store to a place where somebody lives, there's a high process to this. We hadn't been in the nursing home for some time because there weren't issues with it. So, look, can you even do what you want to do in this? The initial cursory review from a third-party architect said yes. But I think, again, based on the challenge of what's going to be operating here, I don't think it's unreasonable to have our inspectors go through and then take a look to see if it can meet those standards. We'd be doing it as part of the certificate of occupancy anyway, but if you would like some more things up front, I don't quite see that as unreasonable. As far as the parking, the property dispute, that's ultimately going to come up, right? We don't get stuck in the middle of private party property disputes. But a parking plan that shows, location of sufficient number of off-street spaces. If you want to put a hard number in, can. Generally, I think, our zoning administrator is pretty good about discretion in terms of where it fits. I think you saw from the pastor here. But I think it is important to have in there that, right, either they're provided on site or there's an agreement, whether it's on the adjacent property, that those are there. The other one that I think is germane, and it kind of goes with the site plan aspects. The parking goes with the site plan, but this, and especially if you want to call up the landscape lighting security plan, that's approved in consultation with both our department, but if you want to add the Green Bay Police Department in there as well. I think, Alder Galvin brings up a good point in terms of just given the transitional nature, of the facility, then be good for law enforcement to kind of sign off, right? And we talked about, the physical environment and both for this property itself, but also for the neighborhood to provide that sense of safety and security. Again, moving from a nursing home to a transitional living facility, I don't think that's out of bounds in terms of that requirement. I think there might have been 2 or 3 others, but I think those are the 3 generally that I felt, in terms of going back to from a land use perspective, are things that we could get, our arms around and encode into the actual conditions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got anything else?
You want to know my questions?
Okay. Yeah, it's, look, I'll be honest, it's a tough one.
So our building inspectors have, because I know with properties, building inspectors can inspect the outside and they can't get into the inside unless they're invited in or let in, basically, I guess, from the issues.
If there's an imminent health or safety concern, but otherwise it's complaint driven,
Right.
Either property owner or in cases we a lot of times have tenants would call on a landlord saying, look, this is unsafe, there's no heat, there's no water, other types of things that would allow us to get in to a facility.
Thank you. Commissioner Lefesky.
Looking at this list here, are these things that we normally wouldn't do anyway? Is it that strikingly different, or are these things that we can absorb as far as not coming back to another meeting with another list every time we come in the door? But I would hope that if all these have value, that these would be included in our requirements. Is that too much to ask?
I think it's important to, so look, I mean, we looked through and looked at the conditional use permit for St. John's that we just did,
Yep.
a few months ago, and, things that we're asking of this. In that case, I mean, you were dealing with a facility that had already been operating, was asking to continue to operate, so you kind of had a body of evidence from which to judge. Here, we don't quite in terms of, okay, there's some evidence from the facility on Jefferson, the one on South Broadway, looked at going that process, but pulled out because they realized, right, we couldn't do that facility. But here, it's something new, so I think erring on the side of caution in terms of, introducing, some of these things in here. I think it's important to put them in as conditions and list them out, because it's a lot easier for us to hold somebody accountable if it's, right, specifically listed in your permit, that there's specific things. No, it's not just like implied, like you thought you should do it, like it says point F, point G, like you are going to do this.
As a planning commissioner, I've been on this planning commission for 12 years, 13 years. I get concerned when I see these things, and are these things that we have been missing, I guess is my concern. And if not, I think it should be weighed with a grain of salt, basically, to maybe include them. And yes, you're not going to necessarily include everything on this list, because the list could go on and on. Every time we have a meeting, we could have a list like this come out.
Well, I think I'll go back to kind of where I started with, we're kind of entering a new phase of conditional use permits, is moving into ones kind of post-Act 67, where the burden of proof is on us. And it makes it much more difficult to, the legislation goes as far as to say, like, look, if they meet the conditions, the city shall issue the CUP. To me, that basically you're turning it into a by right use. So I think unless you identify these specifically, you're going to have a hard time enforcing it. So you probably will see longer lists for things that basically come with more concerns or have the potential
For probably
to cause
similar
issues.
uses, basically.
Correct.
Okay. I would also like to add at this time that I'm pretty proud of what St. John's has turned out to be, and we do review them annually, basically, I believe it is, that, and they're basically running safe and sound. I think that's an example.
I think we had one of the same conditions in there, right?
Yeah.
I think point C, that the discretion, if there's a complaint or there's an issue, can come back
Exactly.
before this body. My office, we have not received complaints about it, but if we did, then we would bring it
All right, thank you.
here.
I had a question, a thought, and then I'm prepared to bring a motion. My question was, at the prior council meeting, was the council informed of, or I should say reminded of the change in the law that creates the obligation on the city, or the presumption that the city shall approve these permits unless there's compelling evidence to the contrary? Do you know if that was presented to the council in that way?
It was not.
Okay. It might be helpful when we send this back to the council that in some way, shape, or form we can convey that thought, because I don't think we discussed that in our meeting last time either. My thought, and just for a refresher for anyone who wasn't at the last meeting, my wife and I own a house on Van Buren Street, not far from this location. My partners and I own a firm on the corner of Crooks and Jefferson Street, not far from this location, so I have skin in this game. But this particular type of facility, I think, fills a need that is lacking in the community. It's different than St. John's. It's different than New Community Shelter in the sense that it's a place where people don't just go to spend tonight. It's that plan that takes them from the place where they have nothing and nowhere to go to, I have a consistent house. I have obligations. I'm remaining employed and sober. I'm transitioning into housing permanently in the community. And I think there's a lack in the community to a certain extent of that type of, ironically, transitional facility. I think this particular proposal, under these restrictions, fills a need in the community to take people from sleeping under bushes, in yards, in parks, being drunk, being unemployed, to that next step. From not just sleeping in a place tonight, but to having a plan, being employed, being sober, either becoming or regaining their status as a productive member of the community that we want. So I'm going to move, because of that need, because of the plan, because of the thorough thoughtfulness that has gone into this, I'm going to move that we approve the permit as proposed. I would like to include 2 amendments based on what you explained. One, to include incorporation of the city's inspectors prior to the process, as you kind of alluded to. I'll leave the fine details to you. But also to incorporate the police department approving the security plan and cameras as well. So with those 2
You don't have to ask for my
amendments,
approval.
I know, I'm just articulating.
Yeah.
So that's what I would move for approval with those 2 amendments.
I have a question. What is the proper action that the city council is looking to this committee to come back with?
I mean, I guess I.
We
I'll
already
defer to-
visited it, and as
yeah,
far as I'm concerned,
I'll
we
defer
passed
to
it. I
Galvin
think we
is the
passed
one who
it
has to send
unanimously.
it back for
Basically,
further review.
We're asking that if you do approve it, that you include the recommendations that I voiced here.
Okay.
Licensed staff,
Mhm.
the security issues, and some of those other things. And that prior to the cup being granted, there were some other things I wrote down there that I think should be addressed before we, because if you do the cup before some of that stuff is done, you're getting the horse in front of the cart.
Okay.
And I think that's going to make issues in the future where this city has been guilty of always granting forgiveness instead of granting permission for people to move forward with projects.
I guess my concern with one of those points, the requiring the licensing for the staff for AODA treatment, that's, my understanding is we're not approving a treatment facility. We're approving a housing facility. I think that if they were looking to have a treatment facility, I'd be more comfortable requiring them to have licensed treatment staff and faculty. But given the nature of the law and the limits of this commission, I think it would be an overextension to require a housing facility to have licensed staff for AODA treatment and management, in my opinion, based on the law.
Right, and you certainly have more experience with that than I do. But my concern here is that if you read the operation plan, there is quite a bit of counseling that takes place. Spiritual, personal, financial, a lot of these things take place. And if you check with any of the other facilities here, they have people that do all that, except maybe not the spiritual part, but the staff that does have some higher education towards that end. And so I thought to keep them on a level par with the other facilities in this area, if that's legal, I would certainly like to see that as part of the cup.
Question for the staff, you may not know this off the top of your head. In the CUPs we had for the other facilities, did we require staff to be trained in these types of areas?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, my understanding is most of them, that's just what they do. They offer it. And it's kind of like with other entities we've had here in Green Bay. We've had some things that were brought up because we looked at what other organizations or businesses were doing. We said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's make sure anything that starts coming in behind this encompasses that same thing because it's made them successful, and so we want them to be successful and not a drain on our society, but actually a plus for our community.
I think one of the things that we discussed is in terms of, right, in a lot of businesses in the fields, there's a state license or a certification that you have to attain in order to provide a type of service. There is not that for a homeless shelter or transitional living facility in the state. And so I think where Alderman Galvin was getting at is that, okay, if there's not like a state certification, like what are some of the other pieces in there of either positions or functions that are certified that are part of it, and address it that way. Because there is no state level licensing for shelters.
I guess we just look at the success of the other shelters in Green Bay. I think having that trained staff on hand has been a huge part of, I mean, I've got a family member that was a client of one of those organizations, and when they related to me the counseling, the financial counseling, the personal counseling, all that stuff that was taking place, it was impressive what they're doing. And so I guess if we want to keep being successful moving forward, that maybe we kind of make this, because it sounds like the state's allowing us to have some latitude in establishing for all cups going forward, depending upon the business, to set some standards. As long as, like Dr. Vaughn said, it's not restrictive or a hindrance to what they're trying to do. And so it's just something that I think that maybe going forward, that this is something we give some serious thought and consideration to.
I don't know that we are qualified to take that stricter position. I would be more inclined to, maybe as a friendly amendment to Commissioner Petrowski's motion. As far as condition 4 of this CUP condition, basically approve it so that this facility basically stays on par with the other shelters and facilities of like nature. Not necessarily requiring licensed or accredited staff, but that they basically maintain the same level of staff that the other shelters do that have had their success. That'd be my amendment. Yes, Commissioner Wespeski?
I like that, and I like that you brought that up because it's bothering me also. Here we don't want to actually create a monster here with overtrained people and credited people and putting a burden on something that's successful, as I see that they have done with this.
Turn that off or step out.
Plans like paleo, gluten-free, Mediterranean, and vegan. Plus quick and easy recipes.
Sorry.
Enjoy a dinner full of organic produce and clean ingredients.
I have seen actually with the people that already came up here, and I mean, and what they have said, what they did, what they talk about, I give them extreme kudos. They're so damn proud that they have survived, and to burden this outfit or this methodology that they have and have it operating right. I don't think that we should burden them with accredited people, and I think that's asking a little bit too much. And I think it's a great facility, a great thing that they have done with these people. And I'll bet you guys could just come back here with another dozen people next meeting or something doggone thing. And I was very impressed also by the agencies that support you people, like the veterans. And you brought a list to the last meeting. I don't have it here with me today, but I was very impressed with the veterans' help that you're getting and all that good stuff. And just listening to the two men that were here tonight, that's just a small sample of what these guys have been doing. And I think it's fantastic.
So just to play parliamentarian for a minute, what is the motion that's on the floor? Because I don't think there's, it's a little cloudy what it is now, and then if there's a second.
I just want to say, you got to be reminded of your role too. I mean, you're getting very emotional about this, and that's not your job, right? Your job is a conditional use permit. That's what it is. If somebody wants to build a house in an industrial park, if they want to build a factory in a neighborhood, that's what you're doing. You're getting. You need to separate that and just talk about, is this the right use to rezone this property? This is a big decision you're making tonight, and I think it needs more time. I think Kevin told you that. I'm a little bit late to this meeting. I was at another one, but you know, I've been at the site. I know Pastor Rico. I've worked with him for the last 16 years, and I'm not sure he can do all of this. So I don't know if the proper motion is just to approve it. I don't think he even is aware of all these things you're asking for. So, I mean, I think you gotta remember why you're here.
Thank you.
I guess what's reassuring to me, if you look within the conditions of the staff recommendation, and it talks about conformance with the operating plan submitted by the applicant, that was a fairly comprehensive operating plan that he submitted. So that is one thing that reassures me that he's going to stick with that plan. Compliance with all our other regulations of the Green Bay Municipal Code, and then also a site plan will be reviewed and approved. So that touches on things like, parking limits and parking spots and things of that nature. So I guess please remind me what Commissioner Petrowski's motion was with the additional, what were the 2 additional amendments regarding cameras?
Right, well, yeah, so I move to accept as recommended with 2 amendments. Number 1, that we would incorporate, these were both based on proposals that were brought up by staff in the discussion. Number 1 is that we incorporate the Green Bay Police Department in a review of the safety plan, number 1. And number 2 was that any safety plan and cameras include cameras that were inside and outside, I believe was the other thing that I addressed.
I think it was the building inspector.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, that's right.
That was the one that you were talking about. Sorry, I missed.
That the city's building inspectors be included in the process with the third-party architect.
So with security, I think lumped in a little bit, landscape lighting and security plan approved by the Green Bay Police Department.
Yes.
Review of structure by chief building official.
Yes.
Department inspection staff.
Those are exactly what I was getting at.
Okay, so those 2 you're adding to
Correct.
what's already existing?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's your motion?
Yes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Commissioner Rospiski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. I would ask that you cast your vote.
If I may, I got a question. The way this is spelled out, I don't think it's really spelling out what we're voting on. Still got this in here. That should come back to our decisions.
What's that?
The verbiage here on what we're actually voting on here, I think this is not really stated the way our motion is.
I'm sorry, in what way?
Yes to
One of the
approve,
things
no
it
to
says
not
right
approve.
here.
Should be.
We're not following this 100%, so,
We're following what we just
yeah.
Including the
discussed.
amendments.
So we have to just follow what our motion is
Yep,
and
yep.
disregard this verbiage here.
It may not be totally up to date.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So, did you, okay, did you vote on it?
So you need to vote.
Oh,
Approved 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, the motion has been approved. It will go again before the city council on,
Next Tuesday, March 5th at 6 PM. Tuesday, March 5th, at 6 PM.
okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, sir.
we should, good luck to you, sir.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Hey, thank you.
Here.
Building inspector.
You guys have a nice evening.
Come on, you gotta work tomorrow, get up.
Okay, next item, informational, director's report.
All right, so at our last council meeting, had second meeting for adoption, which is amending plat right away on Erie Street. That's just for taking care of the expansions, right now it's the property lines, and then also the zoning for West Mason Street went through. I know it was approved a while ago, it got held up. That one for BP is C1. And then all of the other items were approved, minus the CUP, which came back here, which will now be going back. And then, on just staff change, David Buck, who was planner number 2, is going to be our new principal planner, replacing Bill Lockery. So, we'll now begin the search for planner number 2 to replace David Buck. So that position will be effective starting next Monday. So we're excited to have him in that role and doing some of the things here, but then also we are due for a comp plan update, as you probably well know. So that'll be one of Dave's primary tasks, along with some long-term strategic things come before you in the next year. So. We'll say it again when he's here, so you can wish him well and give him an applause, but it became official this week, so my report.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned?
First of all, the date of the next meeting is Monday,
Yes.
March
Take it
11th,
easy.
2019, barring any major snowstorm or other like that. And then we got a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn. By Commissioner Waspisky, a second by Commissioner Hanson. Any further discussion? Better not be. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.